Look at the governor's office. Are we good to go?
Governor?
You weren't very kind in the spatial distance between the nameplates. I mean, your nice Taniguchi is smaller than me.
We do have spillover outside. There's a TV outside if you can't make it in. So we really want to encourage folks, if it gets too hot, if you're feeling a little bit warm, if you want to step out. I want to welcome all of you to the House Media Press Room. This is a momentous occasion. We have been working hard during the interim. We've been working hard over the last decade to address some of the issues that we're going to be talking about today. Top of mind issues are affordability and cost of living. And what we're going to do is we're going to first have some overview comments from Speaker of the House Scott Saiki, followed by Senate President Ron Kochi and Governor. And then we'll go to the specific proposals by our committee chairs. So without further ado, Speaker of the House, Speaker Scott Saiki.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Majority Leader. Thanks everyone for being here today. So the purpose of this press conference is to call out Kevin Dayton. His article yesterday. Although Dayton's going to blame it on the headline writer, right? But once again, thanks for being here today. The House and Senate members have been working really hard over the interim to address an issue that is important to all of us, and that is the cost of living in Hawaii. And today we'll be discussing proposals in 3 areas that, as the Majority Leader mentioned, will be addressed in a historic manner. And these are income equality, early education, and housing. And I'd ask the Senate President to also give some remarks.
Thank you. Also, besides the partnership between House and Senate leadership, the governor and his cabinet level members, we've had organizations in this community who have held a series of meetings and conferences throughout the interim that has all helped us get better focus on the issues that we're trying to address. In the top of our minds is how do we invest in our children, and how do we take care of those community who most need help. And I am very proud of the fact that in the divisive times that are occurring nationally, that we are coming together here in Hawaii with the 3 branches, legislative, the 2 legislative branches, the executive, and partnering with both the business and nonprofit community in what we hope will be an unprecedented package for the people of Hawaii. But I'll let the committee chairs talk individually about each subject. Thank you.
We'd like to welcome the governor to say a few words.
Certainly, I'm excited about the proposals. We have been focused on how to have impact on the broadest sector of our economy and the people in our community to really put more dollars in their pockets. As been stated several times, this is a historic agreement, coming together, an alignment of priorities to really focus on those working middle-class individuals who are struggling to make ends meet, really focused on putting more money in their pockets. Affordable housing has been a challenge for a number of decades, and certainly this package is really focused on putting affordable homes into the market as quickly as we can. And then it's about investing in our young people, as Senate President had said. But it's not only investing in our young people and assuring that each and every individual has the opportunity to be successful in our educational system. It's really ensuring that there is equitable access for everyone in our community to quality childcare, and what that cost means, and most importantly, how we can address it. This will require an entire community effort, and certainly want to thank the private sector partners, the businesses, nonprofits, advocacy groups who've been engaged with all the leaders in the House and Senate. I think most importantly, it's an effort for all of us as a community to find our priorities and really make action happen.
First up, we're going to have the chairs of Labor, Aaron Johansson, followed by Senator Brian Taniguchi, and then we're going to have Norm Baker from AUW to speak on the plank of reducing economic inequality.
Thank you. So we all know how unaffordable Hawaii is, and particularly for our working class families, which is why one of the first pillars of this package is to reduce income inequality. One of the most effective ways to do so is by pervasive tax relief for working class families. So our targeted tax relief includes over $75 million of tax relief, specifically going back to these working class families and working class individuals. The changes for this tax package include making the Hawaii Earned Income Tax Credit refundable. The net impact of that is, instead of just reducing your tax liability on paper, you're actually going to potentially get hundreds to thousands of dollars back in cash. That we would also make this permanent. That means that families can count on this in perpetuity, as opposed to wondering whether or not this tax credit will sunset, as it would have after the tax year 2022. This change affects 90,000 families in Hawaii, 90,000 working families. The other change that we'll be making in this historic $75 million working class tax relief package is to make the food excise tax credit a flat $150 instead of a sliding scale. Right now, that's a more generous. Most you can claim now is $110, but all the way down to $35. We recognize that that doesn't do much for people, but $150 per dependent gets you a lot of cash back for some of your basic necessities. And again, this also affects 220,000 families in Hawaii. So hundreds of thousands of families are going to be impacted by this comprehensive tax relief package. But tax relief is not the only way to ensure that Hawaii becomes more affordable. And to talk about the next plank of reducing income inequality is my colleague, Chair Brian Taniguchi.
Thank you, Aaron. One of the other parts of our economic inequality kind of deal with that is raising the minimum wage. Although it may seem a little modest, we believe that as a package, this concept of tax relief as well as minimum wage increase will help our struggling working families. So we are proposing that the minimum wage be raised to $11 in 2021 and rise up to $13 in 2024.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Norm Baker. I'm from Aloha United Way. About 2 years ago, Aloha United Way commissioned a report called the Alice Report. And the intent of the report was to learn how bad off this struggling working poor of our community really were. So put some numbers behind it and figure out exactly what the obstacles were that were preventing them from advancing. I must stop here for one quick second and thank Bank of Hawaii Foundation, Hawaii Community Foundation, and Kamehameha Schools, because they were sponsors of the report. We're also so pleased that this Alice report has been sort of the genesis of what we're talking about here today. It has activated the community to look at this problem in action. The legislative proposals announced today show what happens when the community comes together, recognizes where the problems are, and as a team puts together solutions. For those of you who are not familiar with the Alice report, it's pretty sobering. 37% of our population, 1 in 3, a little more than 1 in 3, are actually a little bit above poverty level, working, but unable to survive on an ongoing basis. They're struggling from paycheck to paycheck. Another 10% are below poverty level. That means in total we have 47% of our population, 1 of every 2 families, that are working hard but just getting by. And what that really means is that one little minor financial crisis in that family can drive them into deeper financial chaos. Oops. We realize, as was mentioned earlier, that the cost of living is incredibly high here. The cost of housing has driven most people out of the housing market, and we just learned a couple of weeks ago that we have a population decline in Hawaii. We believe that a lot of that is from this ALICE population. Aloha United Way sees this whole ALICE effort, this whole group of legislation that you're going to hear about today, as a big preventative measure. In the big recession, the Great Recession, 2008 through 2010, 28,000 families in this community, 28,000, fell out of financial stability into ALICE. More importantly, they've never recovered. They're still there. So as we move forward and we face the next financial challenge, same thing is going to happen if we don't take action to improve the financial stability of this particular group of folks. The bills announced today are a great move in that direction. Let me summarize. This is not a legislative problem. It's not a nonprofit problem. It's certainly not a business problem. It's a community problem. And for the first time, we brought the community together to talk about it and have arrived at what I believe is a great set of proposals leading to a solution. Thank you.
So the ALICE report showed us that income inequality tax burden was one of the cost drivers. Also, a huge cost driver, as we all know, is affordable housing. So to speak about our affordable housing plank is Chair Tom Brower from the House and Chair Stanley Chang from the Senate, and that will be followed by Dean past BIA president.
Thank you to our majority leader for putting this briefing together. And thank you for being here, taking an interest in the work of the legislature. According to our latest deedbed statistics, Hawaii will need about 17,000 workforce housing units by or in the year 2025. Some of the challenges that have been in front of us traditionally include adequate or inadequate infrastructure and at times an awkward government regulatory process. So in an effort to move forward today, we've crafted a housing omnibus bill, and here are some of the starting points which could be added to as the bill goes through the committee process. The intention is to authorize the issuance of $200 million in general obligation bonds to support infrastructure development on lands owned by UH West Oahu near the rail stations, as well as a total of $75 million to go to neighbor island housing projects. In addition, the bill would allow and clarify that the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation may issue 99-year leases to develop multi-unit dwellings, of which 50% of the units will be reserved for affordable workforce housing. This will be leasehold property. In addition, it will allow the State Historic Preservation Division to delegate the responsibility of historic preservation project reviews to the impacted county for their approval, as well as working to establish an office of the Housing Ombudsman under the governor's office, likely located in DBED, which would be funding by the Dwelling Unit Revolving Fund. In addition, it would exempt affordable housing development projects from certain county permitting requirements to be determined in part, and help provide that all units will be affordable to households with incomes below 140% AMI. And these numbers may change as the legislation is crafted. And finally, the intention is to lift the $38 million cap on the conveyance tax, so more funding may go to the Rental Housing Revolving Fund. Thank you, and please continue to assist in finding better solutions for Hawaii's future.
And we have some additional finance chair that the permitting exemptions are not going to be part of the bill moving forward. As you can see, the bill is a work in progress. It's a starting point. And I think it's a historic starting point, especially when we look at where the come from. Because today we're recognizing for the first time, a consensus on several issues. That we have a housing shortage in Hawaii in the tens of thousands of units. That the population decline of Hawaii is a symptom of the severe housing shortage. That the state has a direct role and responsibility in creating tens and thousands of units of housing in order to end the shortage, and that for the first time we're going to have the resources and the framework to do the 99-year leases to make that possible. If it sounds familiar, it borrows a lot of the elements of the Singapore Aloha Homes model that we've talked about a lot over the last year and a half. And even though we are at day one of a very long road to come, for the first time, I have some measure of confidence that we will be able to end the housing shortage in Hawaii in the foreseeable future.
Thank you all for showing up today. This is an exciting time. At least I can recall we had such an alignment of the House, the Senate, and the
for literally several decades, and we're having challenges to expand both facilities and also the capacity. So this year, to address this issue, what we wanted to do in this joint package is to create a new model to where we can rapidly increase early learning classrooms for not only 3-year-olds but 4-year-olds across the state of Hawaii. And specifically, we want to work with those populations that are underserviced. These new learning centers will be established under DHS, and the idea is to provide opportunities for all of our kids so that they can participate in preparing for the future. We're going to call this new entity a Learn Grow agency, and it's going to
For many years now, we know that our Department of Education is faced with having to build our facilities. They are educators and not builders. They have said publicly that it's difficult for them to do the construction of facilities. We do know that it takes quite a while to get a building put up on school grounds. We started a 21st century program probably 6 or 7 years ago, and to date we have not named one parcel that we can look at building a 21st century school. So this bill is not drafted and meant to be punitive to the DOE, but rather to allow the DOE to be educators and to give our keiki the best education that they can. And the School Construction Authority will then have the authority to build new buildings. We will not take the food service or transportation out of the facilities. That remains with DOE. This is an opportunity for us to deliver facilities for our students at a quicker pace and at a lower rate, we hope. But thank you all for being here, and I thank our private-public partnerships who are working with us over the years to come up with these legislation packages. Thank you.
Aloha, everyone. Mitch Dollier. You know, I've been worried about our state's achievement gap for the 13 years that I've been privileged to serve the nonprofit community. And I have become increasingly convinced that the biggest step we need to take in our education system to close that gap is 3 and 4-year-old preschool. I thought we were moving too slow. That was me. I'm delighted to see this coalition come together. There's all kinds of details that need to be worked on to solve this, and there's a lot of people we haven't talked to yet that we will reach out to. I mean, the fact right now 54% of kids in Hawaii that are 3 and 4 aren't served by preschool. That's not okay. That's got to be fixed. And if we do that, we'll see more of our children read at grade level by 3rd grade, read at grade level by 8th grade, be on track when they graduate high school, and have the opportunity to decide whether they want to go to college or not. This is important stuff. Honored to be here with all of you, and thank you for participating.
I am not going to move to the center, but I want to call to close for us 2 people prominent in our community who are really partners here. First up is Micah Kane of Hawaii Community Foundation, followed by Colbert Matsumoto of the Hawaii Executive Collaborative. That will be followed by, closing comments will be followed by questions to be fielded by anyone here on the stage.
Hello, Micah Kane with the Hawaii Community Foundation as well as the Hawaii Executive Collaborative. At those 2 organizations, we're hyper-focused on the well-being of people in place. And it's clear by the testimony you heard today, as well as the data that proves it, that a lot of our people in our community are not doing well. I think the package of bills that are presented here today strike at the core of some of our biggest challenges that our people are facing. And when you look at these bills independently, anybody can poke a hole in it. But I think what's extremely powerful, when we look at these bills collectively, they can make an extremely profound impact on our community. For the first time in my career, working both in public and private sector, I've never seen such an omnibus, unified voice among the legislative body, the governor's office, the business community, the nonprofit community, the philanthropic community, all focused on trying to have an impact on the well-being of people in place. And as we go forward and we hear dissenters, I hope we remain focused on the ultimate goal, which is to bring our people home and to keep. Thank you.
Colbert?
Good afternoon. On behalf of Collaborative, which is an association of leaders from a number of business as well as nonprofit organizations in our community, I'd like to thank and commend our elected officials for coming together and putting this package of proposals forward, because not only is this set of proposals bold and ambitious, but it actually proposes meaningful changes in a way that will actually make a difference. I think that too often in the past, we've seen efforts to bring about change that have been incremental and have not gotten to the target. I think this package of proposals actually moves us much further and faster along to actually get some tangible results that our community needs and people are looking for from our elected leaders. And so I commend them for having come up, and I also commend them for having been so collaborative in reaching out to the community of stakeholders to get them involved in the process that led to the creation of this package. I think that it couldn't come at a more timely point in Hawaii's evolution, because our leading economists have already pointed out that we're about to enter a phase where our economy is about to slow down. And we need to do things to help boost our economy for the welfare of all of us. And so this package of proposals has that potential to really be a significant economic boost for our community. And so I thank the officials for having conceived this, bringing it forward. I know that they go through a legislative session to be able to have this enacted into law, but that's where I can assure them that the community of stakeholders that this will impact will be there behind you to rally to support your efforts to get this enacted. And so thank you for putting this forward.
Okay, we have time for a couple of questions. Mahela, any questions?
Sure, our governor, this question is for you. Housing developers have long complained that there's just been too much bureaucracy in terms of trying to either get the money or dole out the money for affordable housing projects. So what is your administration doing to cut through?
Get us affordable housing for sale as well as affordable rentals.
Sophie, you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. Kevin, you have a question?
Same thing.
Sure. Governor, what state lands would be involved in this? Would it be strictly land over at the university, or would there be additional lands as well?
No, I mean, I think we're looking at all state lands, but we are focused on state lands along the transit route. As you may to go, but we certainly are looking at affordable housing across the state, as we know that every community needs access to affordable homes.
And I think as the stadium proposal continues to move forward with the stop there, the state lands, the transfer of the deed restrictions from the federal government to the recreational facilities on Maui, we can now do an entertainment center as well as develop affordable housing. So it's not just at West Oahu University.
And a year ago, the Office of State Planning completed an assessment of TOD parcels and ranked them. The tier one parcels are those that have infrastructure and are ready to go. So those would probably be an area of priority.
And would the GEO bond funding for infrastructure be available to all those, or we're just talking about the university at this point?
University. It's West Oahu.
Question from Audrey, followed by Blazin. Is there anyone else who has a question?
About the early learning centers, not sure. Why aren't you using the term preschool, and will these be as good as preschools? How will you ensure parents that they will be a good preschool quality?
Thank you for the question. We wanted to make sure that we provided actually learning opportunities for all of our 3 and 4 year olds. And so through DHS, we're able to provide that component to where we can actually utilize some private sector funds to establish some of these early learning centers. And so, but we want to make sure also that we also incorporate levels of quality so that we can make sure that every single child, 3 or 4 year olds, has a opportunity to be in a very healthy learning environment.
Please.
Will there be any accreditation for the preschools? How we?
Again, for all these proposals, the devil is always going to be in the details. So we're going to be working on how we incorporate those quality metrics.
But currently, the early learning office does have an accreditation program or certification process that they go through with their instructors, and so certainly is that going to be adequate, or do we build upon the current certification system that they are using? But they do have a model and a training manual that they use in certifying early learning teachers today.
We'll take a question from Blaine and Siobhan.
For minimum wage, a lot of groups have advocated for either $15 an hour raise or $17 an hour, and there's been bills like that in both of your chambers. How and why did you come to that $13 an hour figure?
Well, I think we looked at it as a whole package. Last year, I think you know that we also had tax incentives for employers. and so we're trying to reach out and support that. But this package does not have that. The rates were slightly less than than some of the advocates are advocating for.
And the number that they arrive at is because they've added up what are all of the costs. So if through the tax incentives, you are able to offset some of the costs that calculated how much money they needed, then, it's an ability for us to reduce what that number is, because the credits, there's a more direct of putting the money into the hands of those we most intend to benefit the credit, as opposed to raising the wage across the board, and whether you're in the work or the Alice group or wealth, your parents have better wealth, you would still all get the same minimum wage.
So the coupling is important, which the Senate President just talked about, but we also felt like we wanted to ensure that we came up with a value system that ensured workers would still end up likely preserving their employer paid for health insurance premium, TDI, and all these hard fought for and very important wages. We wanted to make sure that not only are we increasing the wage, but not increasing it so high that employers end up reacting in a way that actually ends up being counterproductive to the very population we're serving. So we're hoping for a mixture of wage increases through tax relief, making the system more fairer instead of having the working class pay a larger percentage of their tax revenue toward taxes. In addition to reducing child care costs.
At 100 classrooms per year. That is a very ambitious number, but we think we can do it. And we plan to work with the Executive Office of Early Learning to, again, make sure that we incorporate those high quality metrics into the system. And every single 3- and 4-year-old has an opportunity for a.
We're also looking at a model of something like maybe open doors. This is not going to be free for every family. It'll be a scale. If you can afford to pay, you will pay